Ever since the beginning of the Legend of Zelda series, items have been an integral part. They're usually hidden deep within a dungeon, and those items go on to help you progress through the rest of the game. But some items are much more fondly remembered than others, so today I'm going to discuss what makes a great Zelda item. Hey, what's going on guys? It's Ryan here from Game Essays. This channel's all about covering my favorite game series, which is The Legend of Zelda. So if you enjoy Zelda reviews, tier lists, and discussion videos, I highly recommend you both like this video and subscribe to the channel. Today we are talking about what makes a great Zelda item. So I have boiled it down to 3 elements, and let's go over element number 1. And that is probably the most obvious one, and that is the item is fun to use. So for this example, I'm going to be talking about the spinner from Twilight Princess. The spinner is found in Arbiter's Grounds, and it works as almost like a skateboard and a gear combined, where you're able to go onto these tracks and maneuver between different tracks within the Arbiter's Grounds to get to certain areas. This item's super fun to use and really feels like you're playing a Tony Hawk game or something for the brief moments that you do get to use this item. It does have a minor secondary use as a gear to solve certain puzzles, but most people really enjoy it for riding around these tracks with the spinner. That is the element that most people find to be the most fun. So no doubt about it, people love using the spinner, but on the other hand, the spinner is also considered a disappointing item. And why is that? Well, I think this brings us to element number 2 of what makes a great Zelda item, and that is frequency of use. A lot of people were disappointed by the spinner because they felt like it just wasn't being used enough. Now, if we want to look at frequency of use, what is an item that is used a lot? Well, I recently played Oracle of Seasons, and something like the Power Bracelet is an item that you use all the time. There's a lot of rocks that you need to pick up. There's a lot of pots that need to be picked up throughout the dungeons, throughout different areas. You're using the Power Bracelet all the time. But the Power Bracelet really falls just under the category of frequency of use. I wouldn't consider this to be a fun item. So frequency of use on its own doesn't make for a great Zelda item. You need to have all 3 of the factors. So no, I wouldn't consider the Power Bracelet to be a fun item, but it is definitely frequently used, but it feels more like something that probably should have been with Link's abilities to start with, and not necessarily an item that you get as an upgrade. Now the final category is versatility. Versatility meaning that it's not just a one-trick pony, that you are using this item in different ways. Now an item that I would consider versatile on its own is the bombs. Bombs have been in Zelda since the very beginning and have pretty much been featured in every single Zelda game, and they are quite versatile. You can use them to blow up secret walls, blow up certain rocks, and of course you can use them offensively against enemies. Bombs have just been around since the beginning and are sometimes combined with other items like bomb arrows, so bombs have been very versatile. But are they frequently used? Yes, of course they are, but are they fun at this point in the Zelda series? I think people have just kind of gotten used to them and they feel very standard, so I would say their element in terms of fun isn't quite there. So even though bombs are an iconic Zelda item, I wouldn't consider them to be a great Zelda item because, as I said, they feel more like standard than anything special. So now that we have defined the 3 elements that make a great Zelda item, let's look at some items that are considered bad items because they don't meet this criteria. One of the most infamous items is the silver gauntlets from Ocarina of Time. Now, why are the silver gauntlets a notoriously bad item? Well, let's put it against our criteria. Are the silver gauntlets a fun item to use? No, not really. You just use it to push a large block. Are the silver gauntlets used frequently? No, they are literally used once or twice in the Spirit Temple. And are the silver gauntlets versatile? Not at all. They are used just to push those large blocks in the Spirit Temple. So you can see it fails every element of this criteria, and it's no surprise that these silver gauntlets are a bad item. Now let's look at great Zelda items because I do think that they check all the boxes. First, we can look at the beetle from Skyward Sword. Now, is the beetle a fun item to use? I personally do think so. You launch the beetle and you're able to control it with either motion controls, or in Skyward Sword HD, you can use the control stick to fly the beetle around to whatever direction you want to go. And the beetle gets a pretty good distance, so it's really fun to fly around. Now, frequency of use, I would say use the beetle quite consistently throughout Skyward Sword. You get this item in the very first dungeon of the game, and I found myself using it all the way through to the end of the game. So I would say yes, you do use the beetle quite frequently. And then finally, is the beetle a versatile item? Absolutely. You use it not only to collect things like rupees, but you can also hit switches. You eventually get an upgrade to the beetle where you can fly above things and then drop bombs onto them. So the beetle is very versatile, and you can even use it to scout certain areas of the land or a dungeon instead of just using it to collect things. So there's a lot of ways that you can actually use the beetle, and thus I do think it is a great Zelda item. Another really great Zelda item in my opinion is the fire rod from the original Legend of Zelda. It is a lot of fun to use, so it meets category 1 because you can just spam certain enemies and just absolutely decimate them with this item. So in a game that's quite difficult, when you can actually feel powerful, it is definitely very, very fun. Frequency of use, once you get this thing going, you definitely are using it quite frequently. You're using it whenever you can offensively. And of course, it is versatile because it also replaces the candle, so it can light up dark rooms in a dungeon, and then you can just spam away and destroy enemies. So it has a dual use in that respect, and can also do things like burn a bush to uncover a secret area. So it has multiple uses, and thus I do think it is a great item. Another fantastic item is the Deku Leaf from the Wind Waker. It's fun to use, particularly the best use is gliding around, and it integrates perfectly with the Wind Waker, where one of the key elements is changing the direction of the wind, and you do get more forward momentum when the wind is behind you and you are floating on the Deku Leaf. So great fun item to use, and you are using it frequently. Certainly once you get it, you are using it quite a bit all the way up until the end of the game. And of course, the Deku Leaf is also very versatile. As I said, you use it to float around, and again, with the direction of the wind behind you, you can make some great distances with this item. But then you can also use it offensively to stun certain enemies. And then also, in the Forbidden Woods in particular, I remember that you can also use it to flap the Deku Leaf itself to push you along in certain puzzles in the dungeon. So it has multiple uses. Offensively, uses for flying around, and uses for getting wind to push certain carts and things like that in dungeons. So Deku Leaf, another great dungeon item. So lastly, I asked the community what they think some great Zelda items are, and we're gonna see if some of those line up with the criteria that I think makes for a great Zelda item. So both Vinsmoke Medley and Delta326 brought up the Roc's Cape. Now the Roc's Cape is featured in Oracle of Seasons and the Minish Cap, and works as sort of an upgrade to the Roc's Feather, where the Roc's Feather just let you jump, but the Roc's Cape lets you jump and then float for a little bit to make larger gaps, when normally you would just be jumping over maybe one square. With the Roc's Cape, you're able to cover much greater distances. Roc's Cape is definitely a fun item to use. You do use it frequently. I know in Oracle of Seasons, I was using it a ton. And then versatility, it's definitely versatile in the way that not only are you using it for platforming, but you can use it to dodge enemy moves, and you can also use it offensively to maybe hit something that's higher up in the air. So it has a lot going for it, and I think definitely checks all the boxes for my criteria for a great Zelda item. Now, Ahmed brought up the Fierce Deity Mask from Majora's Mask. Now, this is an interesting one because it does not meet my criteria in my opinion. Is it fun to use? Absolutely. It's one of the most fun items to use in a Zelda game. Is it used frequently? Definitely not. You can only use this item against bosses in Majora's Mask, and by the time you get it, you can really only use it for the final boss, and then you can go back later and re-challenge the older bosses if you want to, but you've already beaten them once by this point in the game. So is it a great Zelda item? I don't know if I would consider it in the same league as something like the beetle or the Deku Leaf or even the hookshot being an item I didn't mention previously, but I think we can all agree it checks all the boxes for a great Zelda item. So Fierce Deity Mask I would consider a great reward, but not a great Zelda item that's going to be useful on a playthrough. It's just a really fun item. So a few people brought up the transformation mask from Majora's Mask, and that is almost like cheating in a way because those masks have multiple abilities and they are kind of a central part of the game, and they are more than just an item in my opinion. So are they fantastic? Absolutely they are, but they are also, I think, kind of more powerful than your standard Zelda item and were really built into the central gimmick of the game. But nevertheless, I mean, if we're gonna put them through the criteria, they all pass in my opinion. They all are versatile, you use them frequently, and they're all fun in my opinion. So yes, they're all great Zelda items, so they check all the boxes. They're just a little bit more powerful than your typical Zelda item. So that's gonna do it for today, guys. Make sure to let me know in the comments if you disagree or agree with my criteria for what makes a great Zelda item, and make sure to let me know what other items you think are great in the Legend of Zelda series. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.